Good evening, folks. I now call to order the Champaign County Board of Environment and Land Use Committee. The time is 6:33. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Barney,
Here.
Locke,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Storr,
Present.
Esri, Rogers, Thorsland.
All right, we have a quorum with 2 members currently absent. I think that Aaron will not be here. JJ informs us of that, and we'll see if Amala makes it. I have the agenda before us. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda and addendum. Moved by John, second by Emily. Any questions or changes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The agenda is passed. We have the minutes of April 10th, 2025's regular meeting. I'd first entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Jen, second by Dr. Storr. Any changes or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. I have one slip for public input, but it's Michael Beam, the petitioner. If you don't have anything now, would you kindly stay? We're later on in the meeting. All right, public participation has opened and has closed. Communications. Any members of the board have communications for the rest of us? Dr. Stewart?
I have 4. Just as a, for instance, bit of information, the Illinois Groundwater Association will be meeting here in town on June 6th and at the I Hotel. If you've ever wanted to learn something about local groundwater, that would be a meeting for you, and you can see me about that. The Illinois Junior Academy of Sciences held their exposition at the State Fair, State Farm Center over the weekend, and it was a big success from what I could tell. Let's see. Washington Post has an article on subsidence from water withdrawals. Among the areas most affected in the United States, Chicago. And lastly, the Carbon Sequestration Activities Task Force met on April 21st, and we hope to have a second meeting on or around May 29th. There was light attendance, to say the least, at the first meeting, and I'm hoping for better attendance at the next. If you've ever wanted to know something about carbon sequestration, groundwater, or Muhammad Aquifer and groundwater in our area, these are the folks. This is the opportunity to learn about that and ask questions of people who know. And lastly, there was a press release sent by Champaign County regarding the sequestration task force. And I was just interviewed prior to coming here by WCIA. So hopefully I got most of the stuff right.
All right, thank you, Dr. TV Star. We look forward to seeing you on the 10 o'clock news. So, and thank you for advocating for that. It's not the Pope, it's the Pope. It's from Chicago. So, all right, if there's no more communications, we'll move on to item 7, new business. These are items to be approved by ELUC. First is a recreation and entertainment license for Araceli Gutierrez for a Spanish rodeo at the Champaign County Fairgrounds, 1302 North Kohler Avenue, Urbana, Illinois, to be held on June 8th, 2025. First a motion. Rodriguez makes a motion. Thank you very much for that. And second by Jennifer Locke. Discussion? John, it's all the usual stuff. Everything's been signed off. This is an additional one from the one we did at the board the other night, and maybe there'll be more. So, yeah, they do well. So it's good to keep the fairground in business. So if there's no other questions for John or discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, giddy up. B, request by Anthony Donato of Donato Solar for a zoning ordinance text amendment to do the following. Number one, delete the requirement for a minimum credit rating for banks that provide a letter of credit for a PV solar farm decommissioning and site reclamation plan. And two, allow surety or reclamation bonds or escrow accounts in addition to letter of credit as an alternative forms of financial assurance for a PV solar farm decommissioning and site reclamation plan. First, a motion for that by Chris, and a second. Second by JJ. Discussion. And John, maybe you want to give us a little bit of background on this?
Well, Donato Solar, as you know, has done gotten approval for 4 solar arrays with data centers here in the county, and requires a letter of credit for the decommissioning and site reclamation plan. And 3 of them came in. We got 3 letters of credit, everything fine. And on the 4th one, the other thing our ordinance requires is that the letter of credit be provided by a bank with a minimum rating of, I'll just say A rating. It's not, there's 3 different ratings and they're all different, but basically an A rating. And it turns out that the bank that had provided the 3 letters of credit lost their rating by that time. And it was a bank with a local branch, local situation, which was the only, well, maybe there are other local banks that could provide it, but like Busey Bank could not provide a letter of credit for us. And it turns out that Mr. Donato hadn't really, well, according to the letter, there's 38 banks in the country that pay for and qualify for this rating. They hadn't really worked with any bank other than the one they had started with. But they kept working at it, and finally we do have a letter of credit from a bank with a minimum rating, actually more than a minimum rating. But during the process, they decided this really didn't make sense. For example, they could have provided an escrow account on day one that would have provided all the escrow that was needed, but our ordinance doesn't allow that. Or they could have provided I may be using wrong terminology, but a co-sign or backstop arrangement wherein one of the large banks would agree to back up a more local bank. And again, you're getting and in fact, the state's attorney, well, again, that arrangement doesn't meet the ordinance. So I think in my view, we found 2 alternatives that would provide adequate protection, but it's literally not allowed by the ordinance. And the letter here from Donato also talks about surety and reclamation bonds. As it happens, we have a solar farm at the zoning board right now requesting a waiver from the requirement for a letter of credit to provide a surety bond. Now, I think Mr. Thorsland was here when the county board established our first financial assurance requirements. That was back in the wind farm ordinance. It was the topic that got more discussion from the county board than anything else. And they were absolutely solid that we wanted, for wind farms, a letter of credit that eventually gets translated into an escrow account. They were not interested in surety bonds or reclamation bonds. The county board members who sort of led that effort were Steve Mosier and Alan Nudo. So that's where I'm coming from. Having sat through all those meetings, that county board was opposed to anything other than a letter of credit. But wind farms are not solar farms. And so you're faced with this request. Frankly, I think you might want to wait to take any action on this because you'll be faced with this request for a waiver in an upcoming solar farm. The two are somewhat related, but you can actually take independent actions, but that's what's coming your way.
If we don't make a decision on this tonight, does it prevent the Donato group from moving forward with what they're doing?
No, they've provided everything they need at this point.
Okay, so, yeah, so they're advocating for the future, and we have the petitioner's representative here. If you want to come up and just punch the button there, you know, I probably know how this works, and just state your name for the record, and maybe you can answer what we're talking about.
Yeah, my name's Michael Beam. I'm the Vice President of Finance for Gale Technology, Donato Solar. My job is to help find financing, and letters of credit generally fall under financing. And everything John said is accurate. There are 38 banks that have the required ratings. The only ones locally are big giant banks. Now, we did eventually get one of them to agree. The problem that you have is they could change their mind at any point. What we're trying to do is keep this from becoming an issue again, because each of these things are good for 12 months, right? They're good for a year. We can turn around and we can try to redo it. But if the bank that we just got the new one from decides, you know what, we don't want to do letters of credit anymore for $35,000, which is one of the issues that you run into, right? And the difference, I don't want to get too far down in the weeds. I sit on the county board in Piatt County. We last year passed we approved a 50 megawatt wind farm. We have 614 foot tall wind turbines that are going in. The difference between wind turbines and solar is the difference between, you know, a McDonald's hamburger and a steak from Alexander's or whatever. I mean, there's a huge difference, right? The wind turbines have 40-foot deep holes with concrete and rebar and everything else. The solar panels have, you've got a solar panel and you've got a piece of metal coming down from each corner that goes 3 to 6 feet into the ground. When this thing goes, you literally just take something and pull it out of the ground, and that's it. There's no other, you don't have to worry about digging down 30 or 40 feet and pulling out concrete and all that other stuff. We're just trying to keep from this becoming an issue later on down the road, because if the bank that we just got the last one from, as John noted, decides, or if, you know, I've worked in banking for 30 years. It's a very cannibalistic sort of industry, right? A banker will be here, and then he'll be at this bank, and then he'll be at this bank. And so at any point in time, the person who made the decision for this bank locally that we got the thing at could go to another bank, and then we could maybe get one there, but maybe they have a different policy and we can't. And so as these things expire or mature, we want to make sure that we're able to, you know, give you guys what you want. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're in compliance with what you're asking for. And the A rating thing, it's a Moody's A rating or an S&P rating. Those generally are, you're talking about big banks. You're talking about Chase. You're talking about PNC. You're talking about Commerce Bank, right? Those are the three locally here that have a high enough rating. Chase doesn't want anything to do with a $35,000 letter of credit. They have bigger fish to fry. They're a however many billion-dollar bank. They're not dealing with that. We were able to talk one of the others into it. The other one is very conservative, and they have not strayed into the green energy field yet, and so they're not ready to take that on. So we are literally down to one. The bank that lost their rating, a lot of banks' ratings went down over the course of the last 3 to 5 years since COVID. And there is some statistical stuff that goes into the bank rating, but a lot of it has to do with if you're willing to pay for it or not. As an example, Busey Bank, who I know the county has their operating account with, they don't have a Moody's A rating, probably because they don't want to pay the ridiculous amount of money that it would cost to do that. I'm not going to speak for Busey. I don't know. They're a fine institution. They've been around for 100 and some odd years now, and they're going to be around long after we're all gone, more than likely. we're happy to put the $35,000 for each one of these in an escrow account, and the county can be a cosigner, so we can't pull the money out, right? I mean, there are simple ways to do this that make it so that we will be in compliance going forward, and that's all we're really trying to do. So,
Thanks. Any questions for Michael from the board? As John said, Chris, did you have something?
Well, I was going to pose a question to John. What do other solar arrays do? Do they also have to post a letter of credit?
Well, Donato is the only applicant we've ever had that did a solar array. The other things we do are the solar farms, and these generally are, there's been no issue with providing letters of credit, but we have one letter of credit which actually comes from a bank in Japan. We have another letter of credit from a company that I've never heard of, but is rated. And so I think these developers of the community solar farms are tied in with these larger banking units. They have easier access for some reason. I don't know why, but we've never had this issue come up with the community solar farms. And of course, the Baywa, they provided a letter of credit for their project that's under construction. There was no issue there. So this is the first time we've had an issue, but it's also the first time we've worked with a local developer who was also working with a local bank. And local is always good. It's preferred generally if if you can meet the requirements, and we could amend these requirements so those people could do it, but the ordinance just isn't that way now. Also, I should add, we've asked the state's attorney for comments on this waiver to accept a surety bond rather than a letter of credit on this solar farm. So when that comes to the county board, we'll have comments from the state's attorney on whether a letter of credit is safer than a surety bond. It's my understanding that it is. It's safer for the beneficiary, but of course it's more difficult for the provider. So that's the trade-off.
I think Michael has something to add.
yeah, I was just going to note, and we have no problem doing a letter of credit. We'll do a letter of credit with Busey. We'll get one with the bank that we did all the others with that are going to expire sometime later this year. We can get another one with them. It's just the rating, right, that we have an issue with. And an interesting point in going through the stuff for Champaign County is the bank rating requirement is not actually applied to wind farms. It's not applied to any non-adaptable structure. As a matter of fact, the only thing it does apply to are solar farms for whatever reason. And so, it just, what we're building is much smaller and much less intrusive and much easier, as I noted before, to decommission than most of these other projects. And so all we're trying to do is remain local, stay local. I went back and I looked through the stuff for 15 or 16 other of your neighboring counties here. There's not a one of them that has a rating requirement on their decommissioning surety bond, escrow account, or letter of credit. So, and that includes pretty much all of them that are contiguous, and then, going out from there. I just kind of started with the contiguous counties and kept going out until I got to, I don't know, over a dozen of them. I think I've got 14 or 15 of them that I could read to you if you really wanted to go to sleep. But yeah.
Jen?
This is actually a question for Mr. Hall. For my own, as the newest member on this committee, for my own understanding, and then for anyone who might be watching at home, is this requirement, like, it's a relic of our outdated ordinance, right? Like if we had the ordinance that we tried to pass last year that's in compliance with state standards, this requirement would or would not be there?
No, this is something that is up to the county. Even the new state law
Okay.
says that the type of financial assurance is decided by the county. The rating comes from when we developed our solar ordinance originally. We had help from Baywa, and Baywa explained that for them to do the connection work to the grid, the MISO, the Midwest Energy Manager, required an A rating so that they would have no qualms about the work being done. And at that time, the county decided, well, since you have to meet that anyhow, why not put it here in the ordinance? I don't know if that same standard applies to solar arrays, because they're not quite the same thing. They're still doing an interconnection. They still have to get approval for their installation. But anyhow, that's the background.
Thank you. It would seem to me that, we had help from Baywa in putting this together. We had help from a bigger company in a way of making it so that we give more business to bigger companies. And if we can find a way to support our local companies doing local things and building these smaller arrays, because there's more space for more of these, right? So I understand your point about timing and the state's attorney's office giving us opinions. So I may not say yes to doing this today, but in the future, yes, you can count on me at least. But I would support this in the future, if not today.
John?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the state's attorney's office on the surety bond versus letter of credit, escrow account, whatever. I think we need to have that information before we decide on that part. Since we already have this going before the ZBA, I think we probably shouldn't act on anything tonight and just let ZBA do their thing so we can get it right and fix it. I have no qualms at all about our local banks and the strength of them to issue a letter of credit, especially knowing the size of a letter of credit now is only $35,000. The county, I know the county treasurer's office has to deal with things like that all of the time, and they use our local banks, and the local banks are then backed up, like you said, the backstop by larger banks and so on. So it's a common business practice. So I think probably punt on tonight and get it fixed once CBA is done with everything and the state's attorney's done with their stuff.
Yeah, thank you, John. Just, thinking a little bit about it and what little I've read about it, one of the things, with Mike's input too, and maybe Mike knows this, what is the rating that's one down from that?
So it depends whether
B?
you're,
Is it
it depends whether
AA?
you're talking about Moody's or Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's is, that thing reads like radio instructions. I mean, there's AAA, and then there's AABB, and then there's ABB, and it's just that one is a huge mess. Moody's is A minus, B minus, and so on and so forth. And there are different levels in there. Now, something that you brought up, actually the state law, right? The state law that was passed back in, was it February of last year, February of 23. Right. The state law says, Part J of that says that a county shall not require standards for construction, decommissioning, so on and so forth, that are more restrictive than those included in the Department of Agriculture standard agreement. The Department of Agriculture then goes on to say, hey, you can get a reclamation surety bond, whatever is acceptable to the county or the landowner, whoever the beneficiary is. So they kind of are at odds with each other in that one of them says, you can't be more restrictive. Having this rating is more restrictive, but then it also says at the same time that it can be whatever you want. Whenever we went through this in Piatt County, people fought tooth and nail to try to keep it from being approved because nobody wanted to look at 50 wind turbines in the north part of the county. We tried, when I say we, I mean people on the county board tried 6 ways from Sunday to try to make this more difficult or more expensive or whatever the case was. Now, the company that's putting that in, you're talking about the difference between a $10 million project and a $40 billion project, right? I mean, there's a huge difference. The company that's putting in this wind farm, Apex, they're a giant company out in Virginia. You're not really comparing apples to apples, but the sections are kind of at odds with each other. And it's not anything more than just whatever you guys are comfortable with. And I understand, you know, the other folks that you were dealing with, they wanted, how big was that other project that you were talking about?
As it was originally proposed at 150 megawatts, it's being built at 135.
There were 6.
Yes.
So, again, not really apples to apples there. Maybe apples to crab apples. We're much smaller. But yeah, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that we're in compliance and that we're able to stay in compliance going forward. And that's our main concern. We don't want to have any problems with you guys and you come back to us 2 years from now and say, hey, you know, you can't get this, you know, this doesn't exist anymore, or we come to you and say, you know, what do you want us to do? You know, we can't get, you know, Chase doesn't want anything to do with it. It's too small. This bank doesn't want anything to do with it, and so on and so forth. And so we just want to make sure that we're, you know, and obviously you guys have, I mean, I understand how this works, right? Planning and zoning's got to do their thing, and then the county board's got to decide their thing, and so on and so forth. And I'm happy to come back and talk with whatever other groups that you guys think might be helpful for me to speak with. So,
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I think where I am going is to think of, you know, find out a mechanism. Well, first of all, we know we're not in compliance with the state law. It couldn't pass the county board, so we're currently out of compliance with state law in wind and solar. And maybe someday we'll try to rectify that, but that puts us in a weird spot. And thank you for reading in what you talked about. I think, you know, John talks about back when we did the wind farm, and this was a huge topic for quite some time. But maybe we could work on, first of all, see what ZBA comes up with, and then work on making this amenable to people. You know, in the end, what we want to make sure at the county is that you've got the money somewhere to take it apart if that day comes. And that's really it. And the complexity that's being asked for here, and like you said, maybe Baywa was very happy to bring this in because it kind of pushes other people out. Fine, maybe we don't need to listen to that. I don't like companies coming in and help us. You know, it's nice that they help, but sometimes they help for their own reasons. So yeah, I think maybe we should let the ZBA process go because you're okay right now. You're all set.
yeah,
You've
I
got
believe
your
we've got
letter.
everything in place now, John.
So we have time to do this right.
Absolutely.
And try to, maybe we can come up with a hybrid that makes us a little, in this aspect, a little more compliant with the state and allows us to still have the assurance that we as a county need and doesn't prevent smaller operators from being able to do what they want to do. So, and if the rest of the board's happy with that, and we're not in a position where we have to make a decision right now, we can, do we want to set a date to talk about this or just bring it back at after the ZBA gets through this other case?
I'd like to bring it back after the ZBA gets through the case and the board makes a decision,
Okay,
and that's at least 4 months from now.
okay.
And then more importantly, we have 2 big text amendments out already. I'd like to get those cleared up because these text amendments take a lot of the director's time.
Yep.
And I don't like to have more than 2 of those going at a time if it's at all possible. But I understand. I think this has been a good request. I will bring it back to the committee when we get at least one of those major text amendments taken care of and we know the outcome from the solar farm that's pending. That's probably not going to be for at least 5 months.
Procedurally, I think all we have to do is say we're not going to make a decision on this tonight, not take a vote on it, and we won't pass anything on to the county board. Well, actually, this is just us, so it's not even a county board issue. So we'll kind of let you have it when you're ready to bring it back. And until then, maybe it's good for us to all learn a little bit more about surety and escrow and
I will
letters of
certainly
credit.
let Donato Solar know when it's going to come back because their input is critical.
Yeah.
I would just request that if, for whatever reason, one of ours that we have in place expires, and we will certainly do our diligence and try to get one at the same place that we just got this last one. But if something like that comes up and you guys still have it, I mean, our hands are kind of tied, right? So I don't know how we handle that, going forward if one of these, matures. And I mean, the bank that it's currently at will be happy to renew it, but you guys would have to accept that, and they don't have the rating. So we can either continue on down the road with them, or we can try to get it at the other place. I don't want to cause any more work for anybody, as it stands. So.
Well, I think we could do a case-by-case basis in this particular situation. Correct me if I'm wrong. You would just come back and ask us if this one particular
This particular farm,
array,
yeah.
and we could do that, right? Am I talking out of my hat? If Donato had one of these come up for renewal and the bank said they're happy to renew it, but their rating wasn't Moody's triple super A anymore, we could make a decision just on that one particular instance and just a waiver of the ordinance for that one particular case to keep things moving until we get this whole package put together properly.
Well, that a waiver would be an official process. I'm happy doing it administratively at this point because it's at the level of the county board. Everybody knows what's going on, and that's what I'm most concerned about.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'll
we'd be
deal with
real
it
happy with that,
administratively.
I think, because I'd like to do this, as a full thing that works for a much longer time than just to, kind of figure something out and put a patch on it right now. So, Dr. Stower?
Hi. I'm curious. Is there a difference in cost to Donato between a letter of credit and a surety bond or some other sort of thing? What I mean,
No.
besides the kind of the inconvenience or the procedure?
No, it's all the same. I mean, if you guys say it's $35,000, then that's what it costs, right? We put $35,000 into an escrow account, into a surety bond, into, a letter of credit, whatever it is, and it sits there. And then I forget how often you guys get to review it or how often you review it to ask for increases, right, to offset inflation. I think in Piatt County, I think ours is every 3 years. And so, you come to us after 3 years and you say, hey, inflation is this. It's not going to cost $35,000 anymore. It's going to cost $48,000. So we drop another $13,000 into each one of the accounts and move on down the road. But no, it's the same. I mean, it doesn't cost any more one way or the other. It's the same amount, to my knowledge.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. Any other questions while we have Mike here? For John? All right. We'll see you in September, as they sing. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Take care. Have a good evening. Drive safe. All right. New business items to be recommended to the county board. The annual facility inspection report for the period 4/1/24 to 3/31/25 for Champaign County National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or MS4, Stormwater Discharge Permit with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, or IEPA. First, a motion. Motion by Storrs, second by JJ. Discussion. John, you want to give us the update on our MS4s?
Well, as I explained, I think it was last month, we're still waiting on what the new standards are going to be, but this is what we've done in the past year. We did get our stormwater survey done this year. The results are in the packet. Interestingly enough, most of the issues that, and again, the survey is for the environmental justice areas. We're all waiting to see if environmental justice will remain an issue for the MS4 permit. I know some people in the country don't want it to be, but it still is. But anyhow, the point is, most of these stormwater issues are related to streets, local streets, not county highways. We couldn't do anything about these stormwater issues if we wanted to because they're not our streets. This is the weird thing about the MS4 program. The county, in the unincorporated MS4, the county is the general government, but we don't do the streets. We do the zoning. We do stormwater management. But again, we don't do the streets and we don't do the storm sewers where there are storm sewers. So this is a difficult thing about the MS4 program. I don't mean to be critical of the program. I think it's a good thing, but there's difficulties. People criticize Illinois for having so many units of local government, and that's because I think Illinoisans don't want to give too much power to any one group. They want to spread the power around, which makes doing anything more difficult. But anyhow, we did get the survey done this year, and we had our EPA audit last year, and they were very happy with the fact that we do this survey. They said they haven't seen anyone else that has that good of an approach to doing the environmental justice. So that meant a lot to me. But who knows if it'll be in the program in the future. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer them. That's all I have.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John on the MS4? John has a question for John.
I remember last year the county board had issues with our justice area maps. These maps were never intended to be a presentation quality map. They're a working tool. But I did finally talk to we have these maps done by the RPC. I talked to Gabe Lewis at the RPC. We're going to try to improve these maps for next year, try to give enough information so that you can read the street network and understand where these environmental justice areas are on the ground. We didn't get that done this year, but I've asked Gabe to work with us on that for next year. But again, this was never really intended as a presentation kind of a thing. It's just a working document.
All right. Thank you, John. If there's no other Chris?
This is probably, since you're working with the RPC, that probably means that you're working with the GIS consortium, right? Or is that right?
Well, okay, the RPC works with an open GIS system, which is different than the GIS consortium. So I don't actually know which GIS was used for these maps.
The reason I ask is because I thought maybe it could be a coverage on the consortium website, but it sounds like, and it might still be able to, because I think that there might be that the Esri might import or use a shapefile.
Well, that's a good point, Mr. Storr. I think we should add our MS4, county MS4 as an overlay, just so people know where the MS4 is, because presently that's actually not on the GIS consortium, and it would be a good layer to add. I'll try to get that done in the coming year.
Thank you. I think that would be too.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, John, for the effort. Without further ado, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. That motion passes. That concludes our rather expansive agenda. Other business, we have no monthly reports. I have no chair's report. The item to be placed on the consent agenda, if you want, unless you want to keep it off so that Jeff Wilson can talk about it. Okay. 8A. And I call this meeting adjourned. It's 7:11 p.m. Thank you all for coming. Have a great evening.
Just noticing this question on the